Welcome to Face to Face. On today's program, we're going to discuss how to discover your destiny. The psalmist wrote in Psalms 57:2, he said, I cry out to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose in my life. Every single one of us want to discover what is our destiny in God. I'm joined today by my dear friend Josh Carter. We're going to discuss how to discover your destiny, how to understand that God has called you for a purpose. Josh, welcome to Face to Face.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
When you think of destiny, what comes to your heart and your spirit?
You know, Nathan, I don't think we can talk destiny without talking purpose. In fact, destiny is the point of purpose. That purpose takes us to a destination that God has ordained for us. In fact, we know this because in the book of Jeremiah, he says, before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. In other words, long before you were ever a person, you were a purpose in God. Isn't it amazing how long before his parents ever named him Jeremiah, God had already said, your purpose, your destiny is to be a prophet. I ordained you. I sanctified you. And you know, the thing about destiny is this, is that most people spend their entire life trying to do what without ever discovering why. Not knowing that destiny and purpose is not tied up in what you do. It's why you are. And when you discover why you are, then you'll find out the right what to do and get to your destiny.
You know, I believe that God has a purpose for every single one of us. But I think there are some that make the mistake because they believe that God will just do it for them. Right. We have to seek his will for our lives. You know, many people don't understand that we have to walk out our purpose in faith. There's something that we must do to participate with God. Talk to me about that for a moment.
I think at the end of the day, we have to try to find these little clues. The Bible says Boaz left handfuls of purpose, a trail of clues to let Ruth know where she was ultimately going to end up. And I think as we discover these clues and unveil them, I think we'll run headlong into destiny. I believe one of those things is passion. I think as we begin to try to discover our destiny, the first thing God gives us, the first clue that he leaves before us is passion. That we ought to have passion about something. That we ought to have something that wakes us up in the morning, that drives us towards something. There ought to be something that makes us weep. There ought to be something that pushes us. There ought to be passion. In fact, I tell people like this all the time that are trying to discover their destiny and passion. I say this, passion is the fuel of purpose. If you don't have passion for it, I don't think you ought to do it. I think it's the passion that you have that should begin to push you towards something. You may not always see it clearly. There may not always be clarity about it, but passion should drive you to something. And I think God wants us at times to try to discover ourselves. I think he wants us to look deep within and say, who are we really? Who am I that you created? And I think we spend a lot of time discerning people when God wants us to discover ourselves. I think that's where purpose lives. It lives in self-discovery. And so I think God wants us to have passion, a strong passion towards something.
You know, the scriptures in the book of Acts say that Jesus, after his passion, sometimes we don't realize that passion is not always feeling good. It's not always something that, oh, this is a great scenario or this is a great thing to achieve. Passion many times is because there's a problem.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, because I believe the second clue to discovering destiny is you have to have passion, but you need a problem. That your purpose and your destiny is attached to the problem your life is called to solve. You know, a lot of people run away from problems. In fact, many people that are watching me, you have problems in your life. And you're going, why do I have so many problems? In fact, God lets you see problems so you can solve them. Oftentimes, purpose and destiny is attached to the problem that God lets you see that nobody else may see. And if you have the aptitude, the clarity of mind, the precision of thought to say, this problem might be my problem, then the moment you decide you're going to solve problems is when God will allow you to step into destiny. That's why he didn't have a Pharisee on his team. Because Pharisees were good problem seers. They just weren't good problem solvers. And your destiny and your purpose is always attached, not just to seeing a problem, but solving that problem. And when you solve problems, you're running headlong into destiny.
As we seek the face of God, God will reveal to you his passion that becomes your passion.
Wow.
When you have passion, you will see a problem. And many times in our own lives, you know, I know of in my own seasons that I've become frustrated. I felt stuck. It was like I knew my passion, but I didn't know what to do with it. Talk to people today that are watching that they feel stuck or they feel like I've got a passion, but how do I begin to walk it out?
Yeah. You know, sometimes it's that feeling of being trapped that pulls us into intimacy with God. Because if there's anything I know about God, is He is the author and the finisher of my faith. That this whole journey I'm going to walk on this earth is dictated by the one who made me. And if we try to go anywhere else, we're going to have these feelings of frustration. We're going to feel stuck. We're going to feel inadequate. In fact, we're going to maybe start to believe lies about ourselves that maybe God never intended us to believe. And I think every once in a while, when we feel stuck is really an invitation to come back to the root of what God wants us to do. It's a challenge. Stuck in frustration is a challenge. And if you don't steward that challenge correctly, you can end up doing things that aren't even crucial to your purpose. But as we come back into the presence of God, and we come back into intimacy with God, God has a way of turning stuck places into places of growth. You know, the seed looks stuck until it starts to grow. And it goes from being stuck in a place to planted in that place. And I think sometimes those stuck places are really invitations to say that God would say, hey, there is a purpose, there is a passion, there is a problem, but are you cool with going through the process to get it? Sometimes stuck is a blessing because it's process. And I think we used to sing an old song, you may remember it, I'm not sure if you remember this one. We used to sing this old song, Lord, prepare me. We don't sing songs like that anymore. We sing songs like, Lord, bless me. We sing songs like, Lord, give it to me. But I've learned the greatest things in the kingdom never come quickly. They come through process. And God wants us to be processed so that when we get what He wants us to have and we get to where He wants us to be, ultimately we can handle it.
Talk to me for a few moments about your own journey with the Lord. That I understand today that there may be people watching this that, you know, sometimes you can look at someone that is moving in their passion. They've been through a process. They are now seeing the fulfillment of that God-given purpose in their lives. But there are people watching me today that I remember as an evangelist that I would see other evangelists and think, how am I ever going to get there? Do you have any steps that you could talk about today, just simple steps that seeking the face of God, making sure that, you know, many times you must understand that your passion must first line up with His Word.
That's so true.
And when your passion lines up with the kingdom, there's instant release. There's an instant blessing. Talk to me about some of the steps you've used in your life.
You know, I think you're right. I think falling in love with Jesus is the greatest thing you can do to really start the process of discovering your purpose, because He has it. He knows it. He knows things about you you don't know about yourself. And it's only when you immerse yourself. I can remember as a young man going to youth camps, 12, 13 years old. I didn't always understand it in my Pentecostal heritage. I grew up in a Pentecostal home. I didn't always understand what was happening in front of me, but there was something wooing me, pulling me, and spending time in the presence of God. It seemed like every time I would immerse myself with Him, He would tell me something about myself that I didn't even know. I remember leaving the presence of God and I would get flashes. I don't even know if you could call them, just flashes of going, is that what I'm called to? And I think that's what God does sometimes. He uses these quick flashes as we're in His presence, as we're reading His Word. You'll catch these quick flashes that draw us into places. You know, they call it a calling. They call it a calling. In other words, God's not here just now. The omnipresent God is where we're supposed to be. He is in the calling. And so He calls us from the calling and just woos us with His presence. So I remember reading His Word. I remember being in as much church as I could. My friends would say, man, you're going to church again? You're going to be there again? And I can remember immersing myself in the presence of God and figuring out who I was. Of course, I had good support of family and friends, but nobody in my family's in ministry. But at the end of the day, they showed me intimacy, and intimacy is always important to destiny.
If you want to find your destiny, seek the face of God. When you seek Him, you'll find your passion. When you have a passion, you'll see the problem. Once you see the problem, you'll understand that God is going to take you through a process. I would say in my own life, whenever I am seeking for His purpose to be fulfilled, destiny, I always make sure that my passion is connected to eternity. Does your destiny have eternal value? Do your dreams and all that you're believing for, is it connected to eternity? Is it valued in the kingdom? I believe when all these things begin to align, you'll understand that every single moment of your life, God has been fulfilling His destiny in you. Until next time, God bless you. In Jesus' mighty name.